All right, what is up, everybody? We are back. Your every Friday at 12 p.m. show, The War Room. I am your host, Keith Corbliss, along with my awesome co-host, John Moynihan, aka JMO.
What's going on? YouTube, Spotify. Guys, we got a great one today, too. Our guest today hails from Davenport, Iowa. He was the 32nd ranked prospect by perfect game in 2018 and actually reclassed to the 2017 class. He went to the University of Missouri. This season, his junior season, he was a preseason third-team All-American named by Perfect Game and D1Baseball.com. He was also named to the 2020 preseason Golden Spikes watch list. His sophomore year is what really put him on the map. He was electric, pitched to the tune with 40 and a third innings, pitching to a 1.56 ERA, and had a streak of 19 innings over 6 appearances where he didn't allow a run. Carried that into the Cape Cod League, struck out 36 to 3 walks, and pitched to a .59 ERA, and that got him as a 4th round selection, 122nd overall, to the St. Louis Cardinals. Please welcome to the podcast, Ian Bedell. Ian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming on. So, Ian, what have you been up to, once you got drafted, whatever, like prep work and kind of just since COVID kind of started? What have you been doing?
Once COVID started, everything got shut down. Players got to go home if they wanted to. I stayed in Columbia and continued to work out at a local place that's run by a former Missouri baseball player.
Nice.
Named Danny Hill. He's a great guy. He let all the Missouri guys into his gym as long as guidelines allowed it. At some point, I think there was like a 3 or 4 week window in there where his place got shut down as well. And then once gyms got opened back up, got back into the gym, continued throwing and working out all the way up to the draft. And then after the draft, kind of slowed everything down. Didn't really throw any more bullpens just because I wasn't going to be on the 60-man. And the Cardinals didn't know if we were going to have instructs this year or not. And we turned out not to have instructs, so it kind of worked a little bit in our favor. So after that, I just moved down to West Palm Beach, Florida. And I'm training at Eric Cressy's place down here. I got here about a little bit over 3.5 weeks ago and going to be down here till all the way through spring training aside from the holidays.
Cool. That's awesome. So, what you kind of touched upon, this is obviously a big year for you. You got drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals. But one of the, interesting things that we found out was they're actually your favorite team growing up.
They were. Yeah.
So kind of like, what was that like for you? Because that's like every little kid's dream that, wants to become a professional baseball player. You play for your hometown. For me, it would have been the Yankees. For John, it would have been the Red Sox. But what was that kind of like for you knowing that, you didn't, you weren't far away from it. You kind of know where you're going with the Cardinals, and like, what was that like for your family as well?
Draft day was one hell of a day. It was a complete roller coaster. I had interest in the second round and never heard anything. And then it went to the third, and I didn't like any of the slot bonuses. So I was like, okay, at that point, I'll just go back to school. So after the Royals at pick, I think 102, whatever that early 4th round pick was, after they passed, I was like, well, I guess I'm going back to school. And my dad looks over at me and says, so you have your classes picked out for next semester. All right, so that's how this is.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I had them picked out, but that wasn't really the point of it. It was just more of a shell shock that it wasn't going to happen just because 2 rounds of picks in there, I figured it would have happened. And then ultimately the Cardinals came in, and I hadn't had any expressed interest from the Cardinals. They weren't one of the teams that were, I'd say, high on me that I knew about. There were a couple that I was expecting, but the Cardinals wasn't one of them. And then all of a sudden the Cardinals offer came in, and it was what I wanted. So, I mean, it was a dream come true. It still hasn't
the best
really
of both worlds.
Yeah, it's still really, I don't think it's really set in yet. Just because I haven't played a game, I haven't had a practice. It's just, okay, you're part of the St. Louis Cardinals, but
right, yeah, you haven't actually put on the cap yet, and you're like, it's go time.
I haven't done anything.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Was it for you? Was it more angst of waiting, or a little bit of like frustration, maybe, of knowing like, hey, these are like having communication with the team saying, we might take you in between these picks, and you're like, okay, now I have an idea, and then all of a sudden that kind of goes out the window, and you're like, what the heck happened here? Like I thought I was going to be.
It was that because it started at pick I think like 46, and then all of a sudden it got down to 102, and after 102 I thought it was done. But I mean, there was just guys rolling off the board, and I was like, I know I'm better than that guy. I know I'm better than that guy. And it just keeps rolling down the board. So it got stressful in there. Definitely a lot of not hatred, but like self doubt that it was going to happen and that I was going to have to go back to school. And I mean, that wouldn't have been a big deal. I would have been back at an SEC school, been able to practice through the fall, so that would have been fine. But just I wanted the draft.
Absolutely, of
For
course.
sure. I mean, I'm glad, it definitely all seemed to work out in your favor. Especially playing with the Cardinals, that's going to be something, super cool for you as well. And I kind of want to, you mentioned going back to school a little bit, and I kind of want to transition back to that because you kind of had a path where, your sophomore year, you were pretty dominant as a reliever for, the Missouri Tigers, and then you moved into a starter role your junior year. Kind of what was that like from going to being a reliever to a starter, and what kind of preparation did you have to have for that?
So after this fall of my sophomore year, before that season, I was told that I was going to be ramped up as a starter, and then all of a sudden, the season came around and I wasn't a starter. I mean, I had a decent winter break right before, and it wasn't like I lost the position, but Coach Beezer likes to have what I personally call as the stopper,
Mhm.
and it's basically one of his top five arms. It was me and Cameron Dooley who did it, who was also drafted by the Cardinals not this year, but last year. And what they do is they're the long relievers. So if your starter gets in any trouble, you bring in a guy who's going to go 2 to 5 innings, and you're just going to breathe that gap so you're back into the bullpen. Or you're going to have a guy, let's say your starter goes 6 innings, you're going to have him throw 7, 8, 9 and get a save. So I was being bred for a starting role, but it ended up into the long relief role, which kind of helped me get used to having to just attack hitters rather than pitch around and just be a conventional starter of, okay, we have 100 pitches that you can have in 6 innings. And it was, okay, you have 3 innings on a Friday night, and we might need you on Sunday as well. So you have to be efficient, you have to be effective. And that was one thing that kind of led into the summer is I went out to the Cape, and I think in only, I don't remember how many starts, I think it was like 6 or 7. Only one of those starts went over 75 pitches, but I was still going 5 to 6 innings just because I was pitching with the same mentality as a reliever, where it's just be effective and get through the zone rather than trying to dance around and just get strikeouts. It was just more attack hitters, which is what we were taught at Missouri.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I mean, speaking on the Cape League, you really tore it up. But I'm gonna go even further back. Sorry, to you make this point of adaptation and of being at Missouri, going from the bullpen to starter or doing whatever they kind of need from you, and going back to even reclassifying, going from the 2018 class to the 2017 class. What was kind of your decision in that? How did that affect kind of what you did at Missouri, and like what was your thought process in doing that?
So Iowa is a strange state. We play summer high school baseball. So our first game is June 24th, or no, May 24th, because May, June, July, yeah, May 24th.
Whoa.
So it's during finals week of high school. That's your first game.
Wait, why? Just the
Their
way it is?
reasoning, the reasoning that I understand is because they support soccer.
Oh. Okay.
I think we're one of now 3 states because Wisconsin just got rid of it. They now play spring, but I think Iowa's just a weird state. So I never played spring ball growing up. It was always summer.
Interesting.
And I would have gotten about 2 to 3 starts before the MLB draft in 2018. So I was like, okay, well, what can I really do with 2 to 3 starts when I'm in a state that doesn't have great high school
Yeah,
ball?
yeah.
And I'm a pitcher who, back in high school, I was known as a fastball changeup guy with no breaking ball to speak of. It was absolutely terrible. And I was like, okay, well, my draft stock isn't probably going to go up. I don't think I'm really ready to go off to pro ball and try and make a career out of it. I knew I had a lot to work on. So Coach Rhodes, who is now moved on, is now the head coach at Southern Illinois. He called me the day after the PG All American game and was like, "Hey, do you want to reclassify and come early?" So at first I dismissed it, and I was like, "No, that's fine. I'll just wait for the draft, and then we'll see what happens." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to play at all. That's another lost year because I mean, you have in Massachusetts, you guys are playing spring ball all the way through the fall, and then in Iowa, we're playing summer through the fall. So there's a disadvantage a disadvantage or an advantage, however you want to look at it. For pitchers, it's an advantage. For hitters, it's a major disadvantage. So I have a lot less innings on my arms, whereas in high school ball, some guys would throw 50 innings, then go to summer ball and throw another 55, and then in fall throw another 50 or 25, 50. So they're throwing anywhere from 100 to 150 innings as freshmen in high school. I never broke an 80 inning plateau all the way through high school. So my arm's still extremely fresh, but I had the disadvantage of not playing. So I'm still working as a 21-year-old. It's still like a fresh arm with all those innings that didn't happen as a little kid. So I'm still trying to work on a lot of stuff that hasn't happened for me yet.
Gotcha. Wow, that's crazy, Iowa.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought it was like that's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Exactly. Me too. I was like thinking.
You don't hear it often, but then I decided to go to college, and my freshman year, uh, I strained a forearm flexor and missed a couple weeks right at the start of the SEC season, and I wasn't pitching great. I didn't have a breaking ball to speak of still, and I mean I was not in above over my head, but I was definitely being challenged. And I went to summer ball, and if you guys looked at my lacrosse logger stats, they were not special at all either. Then I came back to the fall, and that's where we really started to work on breaking ball, and then my fastball command really took up as well. And then that sophomore fall, everything just kind of meshed together.
So kind of going into the breaking ball per se, now you have like a 4 pitch mix. I believe you have 4 seam, 2 seam changeup, and a curveball, correct?
Yep.
It's kind of what you throw out. Can you go into, so you're saying as like a 17, 18-year-old, you didn't really have a breaking ball yet. Can you kind of go into what that was like going from like 18 to now 21, and now, even next season having to face, professional players with that curveball, and kind of what the development was like to get it to that point?
So the development process was very strange. Through that sophomore fall, I still didn't feel like my breaking ball was that good. I mean, it was enough to get by, but it wasn't a strikeout pitch that I knew I could throw at any point. And it was about 5 days before the season where I was talking with one of our guys named Jordan Goobleman, who got a free agent deal with the Angels after that year. And I was like, "Hey, how do you throw a slider?" Because I wasn't really figuring anything out. I wasn't getting it great. And he kind of showed me his grip. And I was like, huh, okay. So I started throwing a slider. I got off a mound. It was flat. It was terrible. So I was like, well, I threw a spike curveball when I was 14. Why don't we try it? Threw 3 spikes, and my coach says, "You're throwing that from now on." I was like, okay, fine. So I continued to throw a spike, and then all of a sudden, after the first 2 weeks of the season, I had it down, and that's when everything started to really take off. Was I had the fastball command, I had my changeup, and then I finally had a breaking ball to mix in.
Now, can you go into kind of what like a spike curveball is for people that don't know?
So a spike or a knuckle curve. So basically, when you're throwing a curveball, most people put 2 fingers together,
Yep.
and instead of that, I just put one up, and it's a spike. So it's almost like they call it like drinking out of a bendy straw. Uh, so you so if you put straight up, you have the straw, and then you bend it, and then there's a little curve, which sounds really childish, but that's the way that our coach described
No,
it.
yeah, it makes sense.
So I had to mess around with where my grip was going to be on it. My sophomore year, I held it like a straight up 2 seam, just a regular 2 seam, and then put a spike on top of it, just because I was having trouble. When I got to throwing off speed pitches, I really wanted to just snap my wrist through, and I was throwing it more like a frisbee rather than just straight down and
Just
through
going
it.
over.
So for some reason in my head, holding it like a fastball and then getting around it was a better idea. And then I changed the grip my junior fall, and then changed it to holding against the horseshoe of the ball. So it wraps around and there's a little horseshoe.
Yep.
Just to give like a little image. Then spiking into the horseshoe, and then being able to pull a little bit more seams down to get better rotation.
And when did you get to the point where you were like, okay, I can attack hitters with this comfortably and know I have it in my back pocket to use on like an 0-2, 1-2 count or whatever it might be?
So I was comfortable with the old grip, and it started after that the first 2 weeks of my sophomore season, and then when I got to the Cape, that was when everything just started mixing in better. Just because I had that little 3 week break before going into it, so I was comfortable. I could work on every little drill leading up to it, and then throughout the Cape, it was just I threw one every 7 days, so it was
There you go.
pretty easy to stay on track. Because as a reliever, I'd throw 3 innings every 4 days, and then as a
Yeah,
starter,
yeah.
I would throw 5 innings every 7 days. So my arm felt great, and then I was able to work on stuff throughout the week. And
So
then I
you
really got comfortable with it. Like any count, no matter what point was this season that got canceled. I kind of lost my changeup for a little bit. So if you look at the splits, it was basically just fastball, curveball, regardless of hitter. But mostly I would throw lefties, changeups, and I just didn't really have the changeup. And then over this quarantine, I got it back.
nice. So you kind of, brought up the, Cape Cod League, and that's kind of what it looks like is, I mean, you had a .59 ERA that summer. That kind of just
That was
speaks for
okay.
its. Yeah, that's like it's like I guess okay, it's solid. Yeah, but it kind of just like speaks for itself. And so, I mean, I guess you kind of talked about it a little bit, but was the big developmental change that summer for you is being able to throw that curveball so consistent?
Yeah, that was the biggest change. And also there's a little difference between in season and summer ball. Summer ball is a little bit more of showcase ball where guys are playing, I don't want to say selfishly, but you're playing more for yourself, whether you're trying to get hits or you're trying to show power or anything like that. So you can expose a little bit more as a pitcher of what hitters are trying to do. And then just cross counting people, pitching them backwards. So starting off with breaking balls or change ups. There's a lot of good ways to mix up showcase playing ball. And then when you're playing in season, you have guys trying to work counts to work just to get your pitch count up,
Hmm.
just to see more pitches. So there's a little bit more strategy that goes into the in season. But truly, I don't know what happened on the Cape. It just all of a sudden just rolled off, and I was playing out of my ass, and I don't really know what it was, but it worked.
No, exactly. It worked out.
Yeah. You talked a lot about like pitch feel and stuff. We talked to some people, and obviously, kind of bringing up this new age of baseball where it's a lot of analytics are in the game. Do you find yourself taking a look at some of those analytics and looking at spin rate and axes of pitches, or are you more of a feel guy, or do you find yourself somewhere in between?
So I'm mostly in between, but I would take more feel rather than analytics. So Missouri, we'd look at Rapsodo reports during
Sure.
bullpens. You would never know anything about what happened in game unless a coach came up to you and said, "Okay, what happened here?" And then odds are you probably don't know. But just looking at reports for bullpens was somewhat helpful, but always your stuff is just going to be a little bit different when there's that adrenaline that kicks in.
Definitely.
But I mean, my numbers don't play overly well according to Rapsodo, but when you can pitch and you can hit locations and mix speeds, that's what really ultimately helps. Now, if you have really good analytics and you can do that, then you're going to be really good. So mostly I only use the analytics for breaking balls because my changeup and fastball are both 100% spin efficiency that are both the changeup's a little bit below average on spin rate, which is a good thing. And then my fastball's average spin rate, but I have really good horizontal movement. So if once I already know that, I don't really need to know the analytics for the fastball and the changeup. It's just trying to work and get that curveball just a little bit better.
So we haven't really so we've had a few pitchers come on the show, but I don't think we've ever really like kind of got into it because you're talking about spin rate a little bit. Can you kind of tell people what it spin rate means and kind of how to develop a spin rate on a ball?
So spin rate, it's all about a good example is let's say you put a rod right through the middle of the ball at let's say you drew a circle and you put your X and Y axis right through the center. If you put your fingers and you pulled straight down on the ball, that'd be 100% spin efficiency. But as your arm angle starts to drop, as long as you're still getting straight through it, you're going to get 100% spin efficiency, but you're just going to create more horizontal movement. So guys that throw straight over the top tend to get a little bit more vertical movement. Guys that throw more sidearm to 3/4 get more horizontal movement. So the way that you work on your spin rate or spin axis is all about hand placement and where it is. So spin rate on your fastball is just kind of set. I mean, there's no real way to know how to increase that without using foreign substances, as in like pine tar or pelican grip or other, who knows what, sunscreen and rosin. I don't know. There's so many ways to get a sticky substance, but there's on fastballs. There's no real way to increase it. But for breaking balls, you can try applying pressure, loosening pressure, shifting the ball in your hand, whether you're holding it tight in the back of your I don't know, what do you call it, web of your hand, in the thumb, or loosening it up. There's just little ways of, when you have that Rapsodo in front of you, you can mess around with just those little things and see what improves it or if it's making it worse. So just the numbers can help. The numbers help you to figure out what pressure and alignment that your fingers need.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, by the way. Appreciate
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about, we speed up, we go, through college, up to draft day, and now, you're officially, a Cardinals pitcher, basically. That must feel good for me to say that. So when, the Cardinals are like known for their pitching, they had ton of good guys, Flaherty, obviously Wainwright, all the guys, coming up, the pipeline and stuff like that. What are you kind of most excited about to learn from their, pitching development, player development department? And have they already implemented some strategy into your game plan that that they're looking forward to seeing in 2021?
So we haven't really gotten it. That probably would have been more of, if we had instructs, we would have gotten a little bit more into the Cardinal way of pitching. But for right now, it's just mostly just keep your arm fresh, stay healthy, don't slack off and just not do anything and show up out of shape. Which I mean, that'd be immature now that you're a professional to do something like that. But there hasn't been a huge implementation of anything. But the most thing I'm excited for is to show up and just figure out how professional pitching works. So my entire life, it's been people calling pitches, and then in summer ball, I got to call my own pitches, which, I mean, I still would have called them just about the same as my coach back at Missouri would have, just because that's where I learned to pitch. That's how I'm going to pitch. But just learning how to throw more of your own game and how to mix in pitches rather than just having someone else do it for you, with you being the pigeon that pulling the strings and you're just doing it.
It seems like you're in good hands with those guys for sure.
Yeah, I had some good coaches, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We'll do one last baseball one here before we get into the rapid fire. Ian, some short and long-term goals for yourself, not only for the 2021 season, but through and beyond as you continue your professional career.
Short-term goal is to at least get to high A. I'll probably start off in Peoria, which I wouldn't complain about. It'd only be 75 minutes from my hometown in the Midwest League, and I'd get to play at my hometown stadium. So that'd be kind of cool to do. But I want to at least get to high A. That'd be, if not double A. I know that's probably moving a little bit fast, but if we can just be consistent, I feel like that's just the biggest key, because the Cardinals are known for pulling up pitching, especially at a young age. You just have to prove that you can do it. So that was one thing that I was in college, was just being consistent. So just hopefully have a consistent season. And then long-term goal, obviously make the big leagues. Of course, I'd like to be there in 3 or 4 years. That'd be really nice. But if it takes a little bit longer, I mean, a dream can wait at that point, but you just have to continue working at it.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Keith, you want to start off the rapid fire ones?
Sure. So we'll just do
there's still some baseball ones in here.
Yeah. We'll
But
do some rapid fire questions for you. So obviously, your favorite team is the Cardinals. Kind of, what was your growing up? What was your best Cardinals moment in terms of just watching them, and who is kind of your favorite player?
So my favorite player was Colby Rasmus, and it
Okay.
makes no sense. I don't really know why he came. So the Cardinals used to have my minor league hometown, the Quad City River Bandits, and then now it's the Houston Astros. So I got to see all the Cardinals players that are now at the big leagues level come up, and then we got to see all the Astros players come
Sure,
up.
sure.
So great baseball back in Davenport, but I saw Colby come up through Davenport. I met his older or younger brother who's with the Yankees at the some minor league complex when I was a kid, and ultimately Colby Rasmus stuck as my favorite player. But my favorite moment is probably the David Freese moment.
Of course.
I mean,
very
it's
fair.
hard to beat that. But then also, favorite in-person moment, I saw Roy Oswalt pitch against the Cardinals, and Pujols went. He had 2 or 3 homers that day, and then took one into the Big Mac land. So that was pretty. That was a pretty cool
It's a
day.
pretty good day.
I'd say so. Ian, obviously, you do traveling in collegiate baseball. Haven't done any traveling in minor leagues just because of COVID or stuff. Where is the best place to eat at the University of Missouri?
Oh, the best place to eat, huh? Um, I love Mexican food, so I'm gonna go with Las Margs. That's they have a couple locations down there, but they do some really good chicken and rice.
All
All
right, so
right,
this
all right.
kind of worked out perfectly into another question we've been asking everybody so far. So we're taking an ongoing tally. So is it Chipotle or Qdoba, and then what's your go-to order?
It's Chipotle 100%. Whoever says
Okay,
Qdoba is just wrong. Um, but the only thing
Let's
good about
go.
Qdoba is they give you free queso, so like that's kind of nice. But Chipotle, we're going brown rice with pinto beans, with chicken, the fajita peppers, with some sour cream, cheese, pico, and lettuce.
there you go.
See, Keith,
The
I
side,
told you.
hey, with the side tortilla, so that way you can make your own burrito,
Of course.
and then a little bit left over.
So you've really
See,
thought about this process. You know exactly what you're looking for when you go in there.
Oh yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Keith,
I'm
I
not gonna lie
told.
with you guys. I did have Qdoba before this. Just gonna
Yeah,
say.
Keith, because you're an idiot. I told you Chipotle would win. Screw you, Keith.
I
Totally
Go.
think
gonna
it's
win.
I think that Doba only has one so far. I'm
I think so.
pretty sure
Well,
Jake
I,
the first
I
time.
had Qdoba quite a bit on the Cape just because the Chipotle was 35 minutes away, and I wasn't going to drive 35 minutes for Chipotle every time. But
Yeah, definitely.
after that experience, definitely going with Chipotle every time.
All right, Chipotle continuing its dominance on the war room.
Let's go, baby. Yes, sir. Oh man. It Ian, we'll get back on a more serious note, I guess. I guess. Who would you say do you model your game after the most?
So I really like to watch Kluber and Zach Greinke pitch. So growing up, Zach Greinke threw 97, and now he throws 90, but he's still just as effective throwing
For
90
sure.
as he did 97. So I really like to take a model after guys who truly pitch the zone and will throw anything at any time rather than just what we like to see in flamethrowers who don't have a lot of command, and that's just not who I am as a pitcher. So I like the art of pitching and watching Braves starter yesterday, Freed,
Max.
Max.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, watching him yesterday just paint inside corner over and over and over again was just nice to see.
Breakout season for Mr. Freed. He's a
Yeah, no
stud.
kidding.
Stud. And then we also have another kind of baseball question that we've also been keeping tallies on. Team Rawlings or Team Wilson?
Rawlings, no questions
Rawlings
asked.
takes the lead again.
Is it seems that there's always a backstory to whoever or whichever way you kind of lead. What did you grow up having Rawlings gloves and stuff, or is it just
I grew up having both, and then so I got a pro preferred, or I guess whatever, a custom A2000 for my senior year. That was kind of like a birthday gift, and I didn't break the glove in right, and it just wasn't that great of a glove. And then when I got to college and learned how to break a glove and properly, didn't know there was a way, but there definitely is. And then I broke it in properly. Just the Rawlings feels so much better. I haven't felt a good Wilson glove in a while just because Missouri is Rawlings, so that's what we had. But I loved my Rawlings gloves back at the zoo.
So he's going with Rawlings.
Yes, sir.
And then one more rapid fire until we'll kind of close things out a little bit. What is one batter? Could be dead or alive, could be on the Cardinals, doesn't matter. Who would you want to face in the batter? Them coming up to you as you're pitching on the mound. Who would you want to face and how would you work them?
Um, I want to face Yelich,
Okay.
but and the reason is for some reason I feel more comfortable with left-handed batters. It's not because righties they're in there. I'm afraid to hit them. I have no problem if I hit them, but odds are I'm not going to. I've had like 3 people in the last 4 years, but with lefties, I just feel like I have a lot more plate to work with, and I can throw in my changeup as well. Just I haven't thrown. I can throw right on right changeups. It's just I haven't really done it. So it's just a 3-pitch mix. I feel a little bit more comfortable, and I feel like my changeup is my best pitch. So if I can sink it down and away from a lefty, I can get weak contact or swing and miss stuff. So how I would attack him, I'm definitely not throwing him a fastball first pitch.
No, I wouldn't either.
Maybe the third or fourth at bat. Definitely not the first time. So first time,
sure.
I'm breaking the cardinal rule of my pitching coach back at Missouri who says do not throw first pitch changeups, which I don't agree with that pitching rule. But there's also always there's no always or nevers in baseball, and that's one of them. He just doesn't do it. So I like to start off with first pitch changeups to lefties just because I feel like that's an effective pitch.
But also throws them off balance a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. He thinks that you're slowing the pitch down when they haven't seen the fastball yet is helping them, which I don't think is true. But I'd start him off with the changeup and then try and fade it down low and away from the bat. And then I can bust him in, and hopefully he doesn't take me deep. Throw at least one, if not 2 curveballs again. And then after that, we go back to the changeup. I have a relatively good fastball, but mixing in off speed and secondary pitches is what makes me successful.
For sure. That's a good answer.
See, he's thought about all of this.
Yeah, he knows. Hopefully, we'll see a few years down the line. Hopefully it comes true. We'll see what we can do.
Hopefully.
That'd be awesome. Ian, thank you again for coming on the podcast. Guys,
thank you, Ian.
Thank you for tuning in, listening. You guys can leave us a like on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, follow us on the podcast Instagram and Twitter at podcast_TWR. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.